How far will the world go to punish Israel for daring to exist? Today, the International Criminal Court has crossed every line of justice, decency, and common sense. Arrest warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Gallant for defending their people against the butchers of Hamas. This isn't just an insult to Israel. It's an insult to every nation that values freedom, justice, and truth. This means Netanyahu cannot travel to over 100 countries without the risk of being arrested. Shalom from Israel. I'm Hananya Naftali with the latest update from the Middle East. And today I'm exposing the hypocrisy, lies, and political games behind the ICC's disgraceful decision. I'll show you why Israel stands tall in the face of this absurdity and why this attack on us is really an attack on you. So what really happened? The ICC has issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant, accusing them of war crimes and crimes against humanity during Israel's recent war against Hamas. The charges? Starvation as a method of warfare and attacks on civilians. Let me set the record straight. This war wasn't about territory or politics. It was about survival. It started with Hamas slaughtering over 1,200 Israelis, burning families alive, gunning down children, and kidnapping babies. Israel's response wasn't aggression. It was a moral obligation to protect its citizens. But according to the ICC, defending your people is now a crime. And what about Hamas, the terrorist group that started this? Sure, they issued an arrest warrant against its mastermind, Muhammad Death, who is no longer with us, by the way. But let's face it, comparing Israel's leaders to Hamas leaders is a new level of shame for international law. Moral clarity is non-negotiable. The ICC's actions show what happens when you blur the lines between good and evil. If we don't stand firm in defending what's right, the world descends into chaos. And if you're tired of the bias and the propaganda that they've been feeding us with, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Together we can make sure the truth is louder than the lies. And also, guys, be sure to join my Telegram channel. We're growing there. In the face of censorship, we have to stand united together. So the ICC's accusations fall apart when you actually look at the facts. Here's why. Israel protects civilians even in war. During the conflict, Israel went to extraordinary lengths to minimize harm to civilians. The IDF warned Gazans to evacuate, sent text messages, dropped leaflets, and even delayed strikes when civilians were at risk. Who else does that? Hamas, on the other hand, fires rockets from schools, hospitals, and mosques. They store weapons under playgrounds and use their own people as human shields. Let me be blunt. If civilians in Gaza are suffering, it's because Hamas is holding them hostage. Hamas is the real criminal. International law explicitly states that using civilians as shields is a war crime. That's Hamas's entire strategy. Israel strikes targeted military infrastructure, tunnels, rocket launchers, and command centers. Hamas, on the other hand, aimed for homes, schools, and kindergartens. And let's talk about this starvation lie. The claim that Israel is using starvation as a method of warfare is as false as it's slanderous. Let's get the facts straight. Israel has facilitated the entry of hundreds of trucks carrying food, water, and medical supplies, and even fuel into Gaza every day, even during active combat. These supplies are waiting at the border crossing on the Gazan side, ready for the UN and humanitarian organizations to distribute. But here's the ugly truth Hamas doesn't want you to know. They steal this aid, hoarding it for their operatives and selling it on the black market while the people of Gaza suffer. Hamas has no interest in helping civilians. They thrive on their misery because it feeds their propaganda. This isn't about Israel depriving anyone of basic needs. It's about Hamas weaponizing its own population as pawns. Israel doesn't just meet its obligation under international law, but exceeds them. ensuring aid flows into Gaza despite the risks to Israeli lives. The real crime here isn't Israel's blockade, it's Hamas's chokehold on its own people. And of course, we can't forget the historic pattern of anti-Semitism. The ICC's decision to issue arrest warrants for the leaders of the Jewish state reeks of anti-Semitism, disguised as legal action. Let's not forget, history is full of examples where Jewish leaders were unfairly targeted, from Dreyfus affair in the 19th century France to the scapegoating of Jews in medieval Europe during the plagues and famines that hit the continent. The parallels are striking. False accusations, false trials, and the singling out of Jews. Today, Netanyahu is being vilified for defending his people. The ICC has turned its back on justice, and in doing so, it has placed itself on the wrong side of history. And of course, proportionality. It's not a numbers game. Some claim Israel's response was disproportionate. Really? What's the proportional response for terrorists firing over 10,000 rockets at civilians, sending back a strongly worded letter, maybe baking them a cake and hoping they stop? When terrorists fire over 10,000 rockets at civilians, the only real response is to make sure they can't do it again. Proportionality isn't about equal force, it's about protecting civilian lives. The ICC has become a political theater. Let's not kid ourselves. The ICC's actions aren't about justice, they're about politics. The court claims jurisdiction because Palestine filed a complaint. But here's the problem. Palestine is not even recognized as a state. Letting them file this is like letting a clown run the circus. And where's the ICC on Syria, on Iran, on the starvation of Sudanese people, or the systematic persecution of Christians in Africa? Silent. But when it comes to Israel, the one country in the Middle East that respects human rights, they suddenly find their voice. The ICC charging Israel with war crimes is like charging a firefighter for using too much water while ignoring the guy who started the fire. It's absurd, it's insulting, and it's dangerous. And this is why this whole thing matters. Because this isn't just about Israel. If the ICC can criminalize a country for defending its people, what's next? Every democracy in the world is now a target. Today it's Israel. Tomorrow it could be America, Britain, or any country standing up to terrorism. This decision sends a dangerous message. Terrorists can commit atrocities and then hide behind international court. It rewards Hamas's propaganda while punishing the side that's trying to save lives. Targeting Israel while ignoring real atrocities elsewhere is more than hypocrisy. It's a betrayal of the victims of true war crimes around the world. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 54 verse 17, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." The ICC's judgment is empty. It won't stop Israel from defending itself, and it won't change the truth. Israel fights with righteousness on its side. The right to self-defense is sacred. No nation should have to apologize for protecting its people. If the ICC won't recognize that, it's the ICC that has failed, not Israel. And here's the reality. Israel has faced enemies, boycotts, and bias before, and we're still here, stronger than ever. The ICC decision is not going to change a thing. Netanyahu and Gallant won't be hiding under their desk. And while the ICC plays its political games, Israel will keep on doing what it's always done, defending its citizens and standing as a beacon of democracy in a region plagued by tyranny. So then the question is what you can do. Well, the ICC may have turned its back on justice, but we don't have to. Stand with Israel, share the truth, expose the lies. I encourage you in an era where people stand against Israel to stand with Israel. Visit theisraelstore.com to support Israel and fight back against BDS and anti-Israel haters. Every purchase is a stand, literally, against injustice and a reminder that Israel's voice will never be silenced. The ICC's decision is a stain on international justice, but it's also a reminder of Israel's strength. We don't bow to lies. We don't flinch in the face of hypocrisy. And we don't apologize for standing up for what's right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, stand strong, stand proud, and stand with Israel.